Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today is May 4th, 2025, and this is episode 49. Listen, this weekend was supposed to be the big boxing weekend. We were going to have all this takeover, all these huge superstars fighting, some great fights, and oh my goodness, has it disappointed. It has disappointed so much. Times Square as an event just wasn't great. And I was so hopeful that last night was going to be good. I'm like, Canelo's usually fun to watch. Jaime Munguia is always exciting. Bakoli and Ajagba is going to be a war. And the fights just weren't good. Canelo versus William Scull was one of the worst fights I've seen in recent times. I mean, we had Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez on Friday night. I didn't think it could get much worse than that. It may have gotten worse yesterday. They broke the record for the least amount of punches thrown between combined in a 12-round fight. I think it was like 445, 46, something like that. Just abysmal numbers. William Scull was running around the ring like crazy. And you know what? To give him some credit, he actually won a lot of those rounds because Canelo was throwing about half as much as he did. Listen, I'm not going to put all the blame on Skull like some people are. Canelo looked awful. He was not throwing any punches. He is too skilled and has too much experience to allow William Skull to run around the ring like that. He should have been able to cut it off, throw more than, one just exclusively going to the body. Like, he was doing great body work, but it felt like he was letting a few punches around. It was just horrible. I think both guys landed 55. I think Skull landed 55 punches in the whole fight, and Canelo landed 56. That's less than 5 punches around. Like, oh my goodness, he was awful. Um, I don't think a lot of it is Canelo's fault. I think that Skull had a game plan. He stuck to it. And you know what? To give him his credit, I had Canelo winning the fight 115, 113. I was thinking going last rounds, there is a world where William Skull wins this fight. I couldn't believe it. I really thought Canelo was going to stop him. He didn't, which, if you ask me, is a win for William Skull. Canelo still has not stopped anyone in the past, I think 4 years or something like that. And it's definitely starting to show. Like, yeah, I don't know if he's the same Canelo he once was. If he's not able to stop a guy like William Skull, and is not able to at least stop William Skull's game plan. William Skull was showboating a lot, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. I usually like the showboating, but he really was just running around. He genuinely was doing more showboating than he was engaging, and it was a horrible fight to watch. He was running around way too much, and I don't want to crap on him too much because, again, like, his game plan kind of worked. He kind of did have a good amount of success compared to Canelo, at least. Canelo was far more accurate with his punches, but Skull was actually throwing more, and he was frustrating Canelo. Canelo obviously was very upset afterwards, saying, this is I hate these kind of fighters. This isn't fighting, and he's right. But I don't know. Canelo really didn't impress me either. I thought Canelo kind of showed a little bit of, I'm not even sure, just lack of interest. He didn't seem like he really wanted to be in there that much. He just kind of walked around the ring, was stalking Skull, but wasn't throwing much. I mean, he literally threw, I think, 150 punches, which, I mean, I'm not sure about the math, but that has to equal out to about, like, maybe, 12 punches around, 12, 14 punches around. Like, just not good numbers. It was a hard fight to watch. The commentary was glazing Canelo like crazy. One of the scorecards was 119, 109 to Canelo, which I get, but, like, it's honestly, I don't even know what the scorecards for that fight would look like because nothing happened. Round 12 was a feel-out round. I mean, nothing actually happened the whole fight. So you can't really, it's just impossible to score. I gave up on scoring it. I was like kind of scoring something. I was like, oh yeah, I guess Skull won that one. But it was just so uneventful that you can't even have a good scorecard for it. It was terrible. I saw somebody, the Ring Magazine was like posting the highlights today, and I was like, what highlights? There was no highlights. The fight was awful. It really was one of the worst fights I've seen in a while, and this really did not bode well for Canelo, and especially just besides him reclaiming the IBF belt, this just seems like it was so like pointless. And Skull just came in, gave everyone a nightmare to watch, hurt his star power a ton. I mean, he should come away with a little bit of credit, I feel, in a way, because he did make that a competitive fight with the face of boxing, and when he was a minus 10,000, or Canelo was a minus 10,000 favorite, but he did not make any fans, I'll tell you that, and it'll be, I don't know if we'll ever get to see him on a big stage again because he fumbled it. And honestly, like after the fight, Turkey immediately brings Crawford in, and they act like this fight didn't even happen. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing more people talk about Canelo versus Terence Crawford than Canelo versus William Scull. We're just gonna act like this never happened. We're just gonna move on. As soon as the fight was over, all right, let's announce Canelo Crawford, which we're gonna talk about now. I'm excited. I still am. And just seeing them face off, it was like, wow, this is really happening. It's official September 12th, so Friday. So they're not going to clash with UFC Noche again, which I like. It'll be Friday night in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Dana White will be promoting it. It will be the first TKO event, which we heard rumors of, but that's crazy that he's jumping into boxing with this. It is a little bit funny because he talks about not wanting to do circus fights, and let's be honest, Canelo Crawford, as much of a mega fight as it is, it's a circus fight. And yeah, this is going to be the biggest fight we've seen in a while. They're going to do Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. It's going to feel like that. I don't know if it'll do that same numbers because it doesn't have Mike Tyson or Jake Paul, to be fair. And speaking of Jake Paul, can we talk about how much more interesting it would have been if it was Canelo versus Jake Paul last night? I know that William Scull is still a better fighter than Jake Paul, but that was terrible. I really would not have been mad if that ended up being Jake Paul in there with him tonight. I think we can all agree that would have at least been something different and exciting and fun. It was just dreadful. I mean, there was no hype for this fight, really. It was just literally a warm-up fight for Canelo, and he treated it as such. He's definitely probably given Crawford some confidence. Crawford didn't say anything. He's not really a trash talker too much, but he was just kind of sitting there ringside looking very bored. He was on his phone during the fight I saw. It was terrible. Crawford is looking big. I was looking at them, and there really doesn't seem to be too much of a size gap. It is a true mega fight. And I cannot wait to see it go down in September, but it's official. The rollout starts now. He said that there will be a surprise what the platform will be. Let's be honest, it's going to be Netflix. I think UFC is about to announce a deal with Netflix. I know that they don't even have one yet, but I think that they will end up choosing them and going with them for the next few years. And in tandem with that, they will do the TKO boxing on Netflix with these mega events put on by Turkey, in addition to WWE. So TKO in general looks to be moving over to Netflix as kind of its main home for a lot of their promotions and such. But yeah, man, it's a crazy time. The face-off, it was a little bit awkward because you had Turkey as the one announcing it, and it was a little bit awkward. It just wasn't the best announcement ever, and neither of them were like talking smack or anything. It was just kind of weird. Let's be honest. They said that they sold a lot of tickets for that fight. They said they sold it out. I didn't see a lot of butts and seats. I know it's a long way away from Mexico or America. Canelo did bring a good amount of fans over, but the atmosphere was not great. And of course, the atmosphere wasn't great because the fight wasn't great. And the fights on the undercard weren't great. And let's talk about those. Co-main event, Badu Jack, Noel McCallion, may have probably been the fight of the night, if we're being clear. That was actually a very competitive fight. I didn't really know what to expect. These are two guys who've been out of the ring for a very long time, who are cruiserweight champions in a way, but aren't really, I've been kind of forgotten as part of the division. And, winner of this is going to get themselves a pretty big fight in Saudi Arabia versus Jai Opetaia, Zurdo Ramirez, winner of that, probably for Undisputed. So this fight was important. And Badu Jack gets the decision. I'm not mad. I'm not going to call robbery. I personally thought that McCallion won the fight 115-113, but those rounds were so close it was hard to say. I liked what I saw from both. I thought that McCallion was pretty active in there, and I don't know if I've ever seen him fight before, so he impressed me a good bit. I wasn't expecting him to look that sharp after an odd last few years or so. But Badu Jack, coming out of the ring after 2 years, he definitely took him a few rounds to get his feet under him. But once he did, I thought that he was having really good, clean, powerful shots. And then the last few rounds, I thought that McCallion, who was down, I thought the last 4 rounds or so, he won all of them. They were close, so it could have gone either way, but I'm not mad at Badu Jack. The scorecards weren't bad. I think it was 115-113, and then 114-114. Yeah, I had a 115-113 the other way. You can't have either of those guys winning more than 7 rounds of the fight. It was so razor thin. I wouldn't be mad at a rematch. I didn't think it was that bad of a fight. It wasn't the most exciting, but it also wasn't too boring. It was probably my favorite fight of the night, so I wouldn't mind a rematch. Speaking of rematch, Jaime Munguia defeated Bruno Saras by unanimous decision in a pretty odd fight. It was just weird. You started off, and I think that a lot of people were giving Bruno Saras a lot of credit. I wasn't seeing him do too much in there, but it was competitive the first few rounds. You could have had Bruno up after the first 5 or so, but then Jaime Munguia kind of started to run away with the fight. My final scorecard, I had him winning 117-111, so I thought Jaime Munguia won the majority of the fight. I think that he had a more measured, more calculated approach. He wasn't just running in and throwing a ton of punches. It took him a few rounds before he really got comfortable in there. Bruno Saras, it just wasn't enough, I thought. I thought he had a lot of good moments, and he had some great rounds, but he just needed to be doing more, especially when he's the guy he knows he has potentially the power advantage, or at least in Jaime Munguia's mind he does, and he is the A side. He did have more confidence, I thought. I remember the start of the last fight. It was all Jaime Munguia this time. Bruno Saras could have been up. It was super competitive. And yeah, so I thought that Munguia looked decent. I think that he should probably go back to Freddie Roach. He didn't look his best last night, and it was still a somewhat competitive fight. Scorecards were 117, 111 twice, and 116, 112. All for Jaime Munguia. He did start to step it up a little bit later in the fight and never really got hit with anything big. So now he's got his confidence back. He said he wants to fight Edgar Berlanga or Caleb Plant. I don't mind those fights, but I think that Munguia definitely needs to step it up if he goes into those fights. He can't be doing what he did last night. He needs to come in more spiteful. I understand why he didn't last night, and it was a smart game plan, but he needs to look better if he's going in with guys like that. As for Bruno Saras, I think that he's honestly got he's come out of both these fights with a lot of good star power now, and I think that he's looked good in both fights. He didn't win last night, but he didn't look bad, and I think that we're now going to see him in another good fight. I don't think he's going to get like a world title opportunity or something, but it could be a pretty good opponent for him. He could get like a Diego Pacheco type fight. I think that he looked decent enough last night, and obviously that KO over Jaime Munguia will always be cemented in his legacy. So I don't think this is the last we see of him, and I hope it's not. We had Martin McCauley, Efe Ajagba, which ended in a draw. I'm not mad at it being a draw. I think that Efe Ajagba, some people were saying he was running. I didn't think that he was running too much. I thought that he could have been more engaging at times. I think that we're kind of starting to see that Martin McCauley is not all that. He's great if you stand in the pocket with him and try and trade, because you're not going to be able to trade with him, but you can very much outbox him. I was impressed by his gas tank. For somebody like him, as big as he is, he went all 10 rounds, and he had his better rounds in the last few rounds, if you ask me. He hurt Ajagba in the last round. I think that I would probably – I had it a draw as well. If I were to have anybody winning, it would probably be Ajagba, just because I thought that he was doing the cleaner work for a lot of those earlier rounds, and McCauley was very frustrated and unable to get to him. I think it's either 96-94 Ajagba or 95-95 a draw. We could do a rematch. I wouldn't be mad. It didn't really live up to the hype. There was no knockdowns. And, I thought this was going to be a heavyweight war, and it wasn't. Just pretty much every fight on this card, it was a letdown. The Munguia-Saras rematch was nowhere near as exciting as I thought it was going to be. Canelo Skull was dreadful, of course. Jack McCallion actually did impress me, but again, it wasn't a war or anything. This wasn't the best card. As for the undercard, Richard Riakporhe made his heavyweight debut. Took his time in there, but got a fourth-round stoppage, and probably should have against his opponent. It was like 9-9, I think. So he's back in the mix. I don't know if they go back into the Lawrence Okolie fight. They could, but I think that he's kind of I think that Lawrence Okolie's kind of graduated from those type of fights, even though he never even fought him, and he hasn't fought since then. We're hearing he could be fighting Ajit Kabayel in Germany for the WBC interim title. So I don't really know who's next for Riakporhe. We'll just have to wait and see. I think he could fit well into that British heavyweight title mix. Maybe he goes there next. Honestly, I'd be fine if they did Riakporhe, Fraser Clark next. That'd be fun. But then you've got Brian Leon, who went the distance for the first time in a good performance against Aaron Guerrero. I enjoyed that. Marco Verde, the pro debut, looked sensational. Stopped his man in literally like 30 seconds, just a few body shots. It was very easy work for him, and he did exactly what he needed to. Muhammad Al-Akel went the distance again. I think he's a pretty good Saudi Arabian prospect. He's a little bit too comfortable in there. I'd like to see him step it up and try and go for more stoppages. And he's trained by Joe Gallagher, which makes sense because, that British prospects, they don't really get a lot of stoppages. They just kind of go through the motions. And I did see on Twitter that he apparently told Al-Akel, this is like the Devin Haney last night. It's effing boring. And I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, I do think I'd like to see more excitement from him, but just not a great event. We do have tonight, in a way, Cardenas to excite us. And listen, Espinoza Vasquez has to be good. That is one of the best fights of the weekend. Going into this weekend, the fights I thought were going to be most competitive were Teofimo Barboza, Ajagba Bakoli, and Espinoza versus Vasquez. I'm hoping that one still is up. I'm a really big fan of both. It should be an all-action fight, and in a way, should be being a really fun fight, as it usually is. But who knows? This weekend feels cursed. Hopefully Top Rank can, upset the apple cart and do something fun tonight. I don't know. But not the best weekend. Canelo really did not look his best in there. Skull made it a nightmare fight. But now it's over. We move on to Canelo versus Crawford. And it just feels like this whole event was so awkward, just kind of thrown together. And the card just wasn't that great. It was just a weird event. I don't know, man. But it's done. It's done. Also, last night we had UFC Fight Night in Des Moines. Pretty fun fight night, if you ask me. Main event, Corey Sandhagen finished Davison Figueiredo in an interesting fashion. I thought Corey looked phenomenal. Ground and pound from the beginning. Just really, really good stuff. Dominating the fight. And then in the second round, he had him on the ground, and they were both on the ground, and Corey kind of like flipped over and had his knee in like a hold almost, but we didn't mean to. He was trying to ground and pound him. Davison tapped out because he obviously injured his knee in the process. I don't know if he like twisted it or something. Not really sure what happened, but that's a TKO win for Corey Sandhagen. Really weird finish to the fight, especially because he didn't mean to do that, but he gets the win, which he was going to anyways. Really good performance. We really could see him in a title fight next. Merab and Umar fight in just a few weeks, about a month from now. And I think that he's right in line for that. They could do it to Peter Yan, but I know that Peter Yan and Umar Nurmagomedov are apparently supposed to fight. And, if they do that fight, then I say you give Corey the title shot in the meanwhile. Or you have Corey versus Peter Yan. That could be fun. Peter versus Umar as well works, as does Corey versus Umar. So bantamweight's an interesting one when really all those guys could get the next title shot. But it remains to be seen. Co-main event is what everyone was really talking about. RDR, Reiner de Ritter, knocked out Bo Nickel with a liver shot in round 2 to give him his first loss in MMA. To be fair, RDR was winning this whole fight. He really was. Not completely, but he won the first round with a lot of wrestling as well, which was surprising. It's the first time we've ever really seen Bo Nickel in the bottom position. And then second round, it becomes more of a striking affair. RDR is hitting him with all of his best shots. Bo Nickel is clearly not enjoying them. But he's trading back and forth. And then Bo Nickel gets hit with a big liver shot that just sends him down, and he's just done. It sucks for a guy like Bo Nickel who has a lot of steam with him. This is not the end. It's rare you see MMA guys get to the title fight while still being undefeated in the UFC. It was bound to happen at some point. Probably wasn't the best time for it just because he's about to get into the rankings. This was his moment to have something big happen, and it just didn't happen for him, which I hate, but the game is the game, and it doesn't always go your way. I thought RDR looked good. He retains his ranking. Bo Nickel does not get to enter the rankings just yet. This was his almost like his coming out party. It was meant to be, and RDR spoiled that. So he calls out Strickland afterwards, says, "I just fought the best American wrestler. Give me the best American striker." I don't mind that fight. I think that Strickland is probably going to be fighting someone with a little bit of a higher ranking, but RDR could get a big boost after this. So who knows? I don't really know what is next for RDR, but he's a solid contender in the middleweight division now. So looking forward to what they do with him next, and I'm sure we'll see Bo Nickel again this year. Daniel Rodriguez knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio in the third round. That was great. I thought Montel Jackson looked phenomenal, and he dominated Daniel Marcos, who another undefeated record was snatched. Really good stuff from him. Jeremy Stevens and Mason Jones. Another spoiling of a homecoming. Jeremy Stevens just couldn't get anything going. Mason Jones dominated from start to finish. It was brutal, honestly. Stevens was bleeding from the head. Jones was just, in every facet of the game, was just controlling and beating him up. And I thought that he looked fantastic. It sucks for Jeremy Stevens, but it looks like he's back on his way to the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. I understand why he took this fight. Thought he could get back into the UFC for good. And, he had definitely had some good wins outside of the organization, but, it was a one-fight deal, and I don't think they're going to renew it. Jillian Robertson had a good second-round finish over Mariana Rodriguez, who retires in the cage after. That was pretty cool. Kwang Lee had a great submission. I was impressed by Thomas Peterson completely dominated Dontel Mays. There was a 30-25 card in there. I mean, it was crazy. Azamat Bakov very, very much impressed me. He had a great first-round finish over Ryan Loder. That was one of my favorite finishes of the night. Yes, it was a really fun UFC fight night, if you ask me. Des Moines was one that I was super excited for, and I wasn't as locked in because I was watching the Canelo fights, and I didn't even finish the card last night. I went to bed, but I was really, really impressed by by some of the fights on the card, and I thought that the main event and co-main event definitely lived up to the hype, and we got some early finishes in them. It was a good event, and next week it's all full steam ahead for Montreal, And Bilal Muhammad, remember the name. I'm a big Bilal fan. I'm the only one. But no, I think the Bilal's pretty funny just because everyone hates him. But this is not a great weekend of boxing. Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. It was hard to watch, and it's so disappointing because this is what we've been saying. This is the weekend that we're gonna take over, and boxing is gonna have this amazing weekend, and everyone's gonna be watching. And this is just not what this is not what fans want casuals to see. When we have these big events, these huge weekends, Super Bowl weekends, we need to put on big, important, exciting fights. And there's a lot of issues with this. We should have just done Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney too. We should have done Canelo versus Terence Crawford, or even Jake Paul, really. We should have done Inoue versus Murjan Akhmadaliev, which we don't even know what Inoue Cardenas is going to be like tonight, but I don't know. We just need to be putting on the best, most competitive fights, not just superstar fights, because who knows? And a lot of it is not their fault. Like, nobody knew that Ryan Garcia, Rolly Romero was going to be a stinker. Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez, nobody knew Devin Haney was going to fight that boringly. Nobody knew that William Scull was going to run that much. But it just really sucks. It really sucks how much this weekend has been disappointing because I was so excited for it. And, yeah, man, it's just not the great start to the usually incredible month of boxing that May is, but that's all I've got for today. We're going to do an episode tomorrow where we're talking about Inoue Cardenas. Follow me on X. I'll be tweeting throughout that whole event. I'm excited for it. Got some decent fights on there. And hopefully it saves this boxing because Inoue really is our last hope. Thanks for watching, and peace out.